This is the latest complication for the Latin American country mired in an economic and humanitarian crisis. Clifton Ross has spent decades writing about Latin America and social and revolutionary movements. He is joining us from the San Francisco area. Clifton, I want to get your take on the latest actions by the U.S., of course, the appointment of Elliott Abrams as a special envoy, these sanctions against Venezuela, and then John Bolton's yellow notepad with the notes scribbled about 5,000 troops in Colombia. That got a lot of attention yesterday.
These are really disturbing developments. I think this is the wrong crew to be bringing in to solve problems or to help solve problems in Venezuela. These people are tainted by the wars of the 1980s, intervention in Central America, and even further back in all sorts of other activities that have made it impossible for the United States to be a credible actor in the region.
And Juan Carlos mentioning in his report, millions in Venezuela coping with hyperinflation and massive shortages. I know you know this well. You've written about this. How about these latest steps? And does that exacerbate that situation even further?
Which steps?
Well, the sanctions that we just talked about.
The sanctions are problematic, but I think what needs to happen is some sort of non-military pressure. I think really what the pressure needs to come from is other actors in the region, Latin American countries, neighbors who are dealing with the humanitarian catastrophe that is resulting in Venezuela as a result of the Chavez and Maduro administrations. I'm not sure that sanctions are really going to be helpful. But I think some kind of pressure needs to be put on the government and on the military, who are increasingly having to resort to drug trafficking to pay for the patronage and to maintain themselves in power.
There's this call for more protests in the streets. Do you think that's going to affect any change?
I think absolutely it will. There needs to be pressure, but we've seen huge waves in 2014 and 2017. In 2017, from April until the end of July, there were daily demonstrations, massive demonstrations in Venezuela, and but the pressure needs to continue. I think what really needs to happen is more pressure from international actors like, as I said, the neighbors, and also from the UN and probably the EU. I'm hopeful that the EU is on board now to see some sort of democratic transition in the country, and that's really good reason to hope.
I heard an interview this morning on the way into work with Guaido, a radio interview, and the interviewer said he was acting less like a leader and more like a fugitive, being moved around a lot for fear of arrest. We are hearing the chief prosecutor, as we mentioned, wants to freeze his accounts, wants to prevent him from leaving the country. Obviously, there's being a squeeze being put on him, and in the past we've seen opposition leaders being arrested. What's your thought on that? Do you think that's a possibility, and are you afraid that might happen?
Absolutely. It's a clear possibility. Maduro, in order to win the elections of May 2018, banned the only viable candidates who could oppose him. He doesn't allow any sort of resistance whatsoever from the opposition that has any possibility of impinging on his power or his actions. So I think, yes, it's problematic, and Maduro has the militias, he has the military, the police forces, the intelligence forces, and the militias and the cooperatives, the colectivos, the paramilitaries. So there are all sorts of powerful forces arrayed against the new president, but we can hope that international pressure and the neighbors will back Guaido in bringing about a transition.
Well, we'll definitely keep our eyes on it, as will you. Clifton Ross joining us from San Francisco. Thanks so much.